Hello, my name is Sadie Barker, and my presentation is on polio, or the scientific name is poliomyelitis because it's the inflammation of the lungs. A viral infection causing nerve injury, which may lead to partial or full paralysis. It attacks the spinal cord and brain because it is a virus, so it just invades them. Polio lives in feces and it prefers warmer weather. It just likes to live in like dirty, warm, moist climates. There are 3 types of wild poliovirus, type 1, type 2, and type 3. I know, so creative. Each with a slightly different capsid protein. Immunity to one type does not give you immunity to the other 2 because they are different strains. It is a non-envelope, single-stranded positive sense RNA virus, the RNA genome enclosed in a protein shell called a capsid. Virons are spherical in shape with a diameter of about 27 nanometers, so it's not that big. In testing, you look for the virus or antibodies the body has made for the virus or to protect against the virus, because it's obviously attacking you. So your body tries to make antibodies to fix that. So this is basically what it looks like. It's 27 nanometers in length, so it's pretty small. That's the capsid, the RNA inside, and then you can kind of see it here. It attaches to your nerve cells. Has a cell receptor, the capsid, which protects it, the RNA, which is why your body doesn't fight it very good on its own. So yeah. So signs and symptoms, it's hard to tell if you have polio, honestly, because you basically get flu-like symptoms that will usually go away in 2 to 5 days. This is if you have strain 1. 72 out of 100 people won't show any symptoms, but they can still spread it. More severe symptoms can occur, like loss of reflexes, severe spasms, muscle pain, loose and floppy limbs. Sometimes you can get deformed limbs if you get it when you're a child and you're still growing and developing, especially in the hips, ankles, and feet. In a much smaller portion of people, it will affect the brain and spinal cord. This is if you have a very severe case of polio, like type 3. So you get paralysis, complete paralysis. So you'll have weakness in the arms, legs, or both. Occurs in about 1 out of 200 people with poliovirus. You can get meningitis, is the infection of the covering of the spinal cord and or brain. Occurs in about 1 out of 25 people with poliovirus infection. And then you can also have paresthesia, feeling of pins and needles in your legs. So that is basically when your leg falls asleep and it's starting to wake up, that feeling of pins and needles, or just that really uncomfortable feeling. That is what that is. So for transmission and prevention, poliovirus is actually very contagious and spreads through person-to-person contact. Once a person has it, any sort of bodily fluids or any sort of contact can be transmitted to somebody else. Like I said, polio loves the warm, disgusting weather, like feces, and lives in sewers and stuff, so it's very easily tractable, especially back in the days when the sewage was just left out on the side of certain streets, when they didn't have sewers to keep it all clean and contained. They also didn't wash their hands and stuff as much, which would also slow the prevention down. It lives in an infected person's throat and intestines. Preventing polio would be to keep your hands washed, keep feces cleaned up and away from contact, and getting the vaccine. So there is a vaccine you can get, because this became a very deadly and transmittable disease. So we made a vaccine very early on, because this is so transmittable in unsanitary conditions, which is basically all there was back in like the 1950s and 1940s, was just unsanitary. So inhalation of the virus spread by the cough of an infected person by consuming the contaminated food or water, usually asymptomatic, but when a person becomes ill, it leads to a lot of health complications that could be permanent. Especially so back in the day, a lot of younger kids got the polio virus, and it affected how they walked, their joints, their limbs, how they breathed, pretty much everything. The life cycle is a 5-step cycle called lytic. Let me zoom in. So the spread of polio in the community basically goes like this. So infected, like poop or stool passing to somebody's hands who could make a meal, and then whoever that meal goes to, or whatever that infected hand goes to, will obviously infect the person. So this is the life cycle of a polio virus. Basically, a poliovirus approaches a nerve cell via the bloodstream. Nerve cell receptors attached to the virus. The capsid of the virus breaks to release its RNA into the cell. Polio RNA moves toward a ribosome, the cell's protein assembly station, and then you're affected. Since it's attacking your nerve cells go throughout your entire body and control basically everything. So once that starts attacking your nerve cells and taking that over, everything in your body will just go downhill from there. Here's another good example of what is going on with this virus. All right. So treatment and incubation. There is a vaccine that you can get as a child. The vaccine is the IPV, inactivated polio vaccine, or OPV, which is a oral polio vaccine. It can be incubated for 7 to 21 days in the right conditions. CDC laboratories conduct testing for poliovirus, including culture, PCR, genome sequencing, and serology. It can be tested through your feces, throat, and in your CSF or cerebral spinal fluid. Treatment is antibiotics for urinary tract infections, moist heating pads, warm towels to reduce muscle pain and spasms, painkillers to reduce headache, muscle pain, and spasms. Neurotics are not usually given. They increase the risk of breathing troubles, especially when it's on like young children and stuff. We don't want them to get addicted to it, so it's not typically given. Painkillers are not typically given. Physical therapy, braces, corrective shoes, or orthopedic surgery to help recover muscle strength and function. Those are typically done in children or an adult, or do like physical therapy and braces to help with their pain and if they have any lasting muscle spasms, which they very well could. This is a picture of the world in 1988. All the dark blue is where they didn't eliminate the polio vaccine, which is very infectious, so it's pretty much all over the world. And then by 2018, there's only a few places who have not pretty much completely eliminated it. We give babies now the polio vaccine as they get older. This was a typical treatment back in the 1940s and 1950s. So this is called the iron lung. It is like a tank receptor, and it helps patients breathe when polio paralyzes the muscle groups in the chest, which often happened in the 1940s and 50s, like I said. This is basically when they're already so paralyzed that they can't breathe on their own, so they got put in the iron lung. Patients would spend an upwards of 2 weeks in the iron lungs healing. If they even heal, a lot of them would die. So some new data or fun facts that I was sort of able to find. It's possible for polio to return even after you've recovered. This can occur after 15 to 40 years later. It's because, so the polio virus, since it puts RNA sequencing into your spinal nerves, your body holds on to it and will remember it later down the road. So common symptoms for post-polio syndrome or PPS are continuing muscle and joint weakness and muscle pain that gets worse, becoming easily exhausted or fatigued, muscle wasting, also called muscle atrophy, trouble breathing and swallowing, sleep apnea or sleep-related breathing problems, low tolerance of cold temperatures because polio loves warm weather, new onset of weakness in previously uninvolved muscles, depression, trouble with concentration and memory since it's attacking. If it comes back, you'll have it probably in your brain, so it'll attack your memory cells. Mostly affects kids under 5. It doesn't really attack adults as much nowadays. It's mostly children, so we give a vaccine when they are born to prevent this. About 200,000 new cases each year, and this is still in in dirty climates or dirtier countries that don't have the resources to keep it clean or to keep themselves clean. This 200,000 new cases each year was taken in 2017, I believe. More than 18 million people are able to walk today who would otherwise have been paralyzed, and that's 18 million children. And an estimated of 1.5 million childhood deaths have been prevented through the systemic administration of vitamin A during polio immunization activities. So a lot of the times when they got polio, they weren't getting any of their vitamins, so giving them vitamin A helped enhance the effects of them healing and getting all the nutrients and stuff that they need to heal from the polio infection that they got. Here are all the sources I used, including where I got the pictures, and that is my whole presentation. Thanks for listening.